Hey, I'm Jusko from ProudMoney.com. In this video, we are going to take an updated look at the Apple Card. As I make this video, it's been about 5 years since the card was launched, and so we're going to talk about how it fits in today's marketplace, some things that have changed with the card over time, although there are not a whole lot of them, to be honest. Now, one of the things that is changing probably in 2025 is that the relationship between Apple and Goldman Sachs is likely to be ending. Goldman Sachs has been issuing the Apple Card, but they have been losing a ton of money. They gave Apple a very sweet deal because they wanted their business when the card first launched, and so they've been trying to get out of that deal, and it looks like Apple's going to finally let them, but they still do have to find another card issuer. And that is relevant to this video because it could mean that features and benefit changes could be coming to the card. Maybe more importantly, it could mean that actually being approved for the Apple Card could get more difficult when a new card issuer takes over. That said, let's talk about what the Apple Card offers. The Apple Card is a no annual fee MasterCard credit card that gives you rewards using the following formula. You get 3% cash back on your Apple purchases made with the card. You get 2% cash back on all purchases made with the card through Apple Pay. So when you pay via Apple Pay and your Apple Card is the designated payment card with Apple Pay, that's going to get you 2% cash back. You are also going to get 3% cash back on certain merchants when you pay through Apple Pay, and those include Uber and Uber Eats, Exxon and Mobil, Panera, T-Mobile, Nike, and there are a couple others in there as well. So you get 3% at that sort of handful of merchants. Now, any other purchases that you make with the actual physical card from Apple, you're only going to get 1% cash back. So even though Apple touts this sort of titanium masterpiece of a card that they have created, when you actually use that card, you're going to get the worst reward. You're only going to get 1% cash back in those instances. In addition to that 3% cash back that you'll earn on your Apple purchases, if you choose to, you can also, as an Apple Card holder, get 0% financing on your Apple purchases, usually anywhere from 6 months to 24 months, depending on what it is that you are purchasing from Apple. So you would get the 0% financing if you choose to, and you still would get the 3% cash back on those same purchases. Now, in the past, when I talk about the rewards on this card, I have mentioned the fact that 2% on Apple Pay purchases is somewhat of a limitation because not everyone accepts Apple Pay. Yes, Apple Pay has become more and more accepted at more and more places over time, so maybe this starts to feel like more of nitpicking, but there still are places where you can't use it. You can't use it at Walmart, you can't use it on your Amazon purchases, at a lot of sit-down restaurants. Unless they bring the card reader to the table, you're not going to be able to use Apple Pay, so it might be a little more of a hassle if you want to use it in those instances. And then again, the further you get away from maybe the biggest cities, it can be a limitation at times as well. Now, a lot of people say to me, you can use Apple Pay everywhere, and you can use it most places, but not everywhere. And so when we look at this card versus other cards on the market that offer 2% cash back on all of your purchases, and you don't have to worry about whether it's going to be accepted or not, then the Apple Card does have a little bit of a limitation there. You look at something like the Wells Fargo Active Cash giving 2% cash back on everything, something like the Citi Double Cash, the same deal, and there are a lot of other 2% cash back cards on the market as well. So while this card is competitive with them, there is that limitation, even though Apple Pay kind of gets better and better in terms of its coverage. In terms of a new cardholder bonus with this card, generally there is not one. I have heard of targeted offers where people get offered the card with a potential bonus as a new cardholder, but that is not something that is across the board. If you just simply go to the Apple website and want to apply for the card, you're not going to see a new cardholder bonus there. So obviously that is a bit of a downside as well when we compare it to either 2% flat cashback cards on the market or just reward cards in general that are out there from the major banks. In terms of that cash back you receive, you will get it on a daily basis as you make purchases. It will go into your Apple Wallet. You can redeem it at any level you want to, either for purchases out of your Apple Wallet, or you can transfer that to a different bank account if you choose. Rates and fees on this card, I've already said it has no annual fee, it has no foreign transaction fees, so you can use it outside of the United States to make purchases without any extra fee being added. That's pretty good for a no annual fee card because many of them are going to have a 3% foreign transaction fee. It has no late fees or any other of those sort of annoying credit card fees that you might think of. In terms of the everyday interest rate, as I make this video, you could get approved as low as 19.24%, which still is not that low, or you could be approved at an annual percentage rate as high as 29.49%, which is very high. Apple and Goldman Sachs allow you to add others onto your Apple Card account through what is called Apple Card Family. You have two options here. You could add someone as a co-owner, which is sort of the same thing as what you would think of as a joint account with other credit cards, meaning that you are both equally liable for the card. You can both use it to make purchases, but then you're both equally on the hook to make sure that those purchases get paid off, and both of you would have it reported to the credit reporting agencies, again, as equals. Now, you also could add someone, or maybe more than just one someone, onto your account as a participant, and that is a person that is essentially what you would think of as an authorized user on other cards. They can make purchases with the card, but they are not on the hook for making the payments on the card, so you can use that to obviously let children get access to the card and make some purchases, and then if they are over 18, you can also have that reported to the credit reporting bureaus to help them start to build their credit score. Apple touts their privacy and security features in pretty much all of their products and services, and the Apple Card is no different. There are different transaction codes, sort of a virtual credit card for each purchase that you make with the card, so you cannot easily have your credit card number stolen when you use it electronically. In terms of the actual physical Apple Card, that has no numbers, no identifying information on it other than your name, so no one can just simply steal your credit card number in that way. Apple also does not sell your information to anyone for marketing purposes, so if you're someone that gets driven a little crazy by the fact that a credit card company gets your name and then sells it to anyone they can in order to make some extra money, you don't have that here. So overall, the Apple Card, a pretty decent credit card if you feel comfortable that you are going to be able to use Apple Pay on the majority of your purchases. Get that iPhone out and use Apple Pay with your Apple Card on most things. You would get 2% cash back on the majority of your purchases, 3% on Apple purchases, 3% at that handful of other retailers we talked about. You have the no foreign transaction fees. You've got 0% financing on your Apple purchases. So there's a lot to like with the Apple Card. That said, it's not as special as Apple would like you to think that it is. I said earlier that there are a lot of other 2% flat cashback cards out there on the market, which are similar in terms of getting you that 2% across the board. Some of them have new cardholder bonuses where you could earn about $200 on the front end as a new cardholder, which usually you're not going to get with the Apple Card. And then, of course, you could pair a different 2% flat cashback card with other credit cards in addition and get yourself a little bit more on certain purchases. Obviously, you could do that with this card too, but if you're just going to hold the Apple Card and you think it sort of is going to be the thing for all of your purchases, doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting the very best deal out there on the market. That said, it is simple to use, and if you are a sort of devout Apple user, it fits right in with the whole ecosystem that you're part of. Now, if I've said the Apple Card isn't quite as special as Apple would like you to think it is, there is one area where it has been special, although this could be changing. Up until now, the relationship between Apple and Goldman Sachs has been one in which Apple has pushed Goldman Sachs very strongly to approve as many people as possible into the card. And so this has meant that a lot of people, maybe with lower credit scores, who couldn't get approved for some of the other cards out there on the market that maybe I've talked about, could get themselves approved here. So if I tell you there are other better cards potentially on the market for you than the Apple Card, but you have a credit score that would not allow you to get approved for those cards from other banks, well, this could be the very best card that you could be approved for, and then of course it becomes the best decision for you. So in various places on the Apple website, there is information that suggests what it might take to get approved for the Apple Card. If you have a credit score of 660 and above, that puts you at a favorable position to be approved for the card according to Apple. In addition, in other places, it sounds like even if you are as low as 600, you still have a shot at being approved. In addition to that, Apple also has a system where when you apply for the card, it's sort of a no-lose situation, because what you do is you apply and then they tell you whether or not you would be approved without a hit to your credit score. So if you go through the application process and they say you are not going to be approved, you just say withdraw my application, and that doesn't show up on your credit report and is not going to hurt your credit score. Now, if you are approved, they then would do that hard inquiry that would ding your credit score a little bit, but then of course you would be approved. So it's sort of a no-lose situation, at least in terms of your credit score. You're not going to get hurt if you aren't approved, and you might take that hit if you are approved, but you get the card. And even in addition to that, some people that get turned down for the Apple Card may be invited to a program that is called Path to Apple Card, which essentially is Apple's way of saying you are not quite there in terms of us approving you, but we think you're close enough that if you can show us some good behaviors over the next 3 to 6 months, we would then invite you to apply for the card again. And you have to imagine that means they probably think you are going to get approved that second go round. So that could mean things like we want to see a little bit more of on-time payments with other credit cards or debt that you have. Maybe it means we want to see you reduce the amount of debt that you are holding on other credit cards or other loan products. Whatever it is, there's something they want to see to feel a little bit better about you before they would invite you to then apply for the card a second time. And again, probably you would get approved at that point. So bottom line, for a card that is offering what the Apple Card is offering, the bar that you must clear in order to get approval for the card is fairly low. Now, despite what it says on the website, some people say that Goldman Sachs has already tightened up the requirements and that they have not been approved when they have some of the numbers that are being shown on their website. Then, of course, like I said, we may have a new card issuer in 2025 who would have different requirements. So maybe if you're someone that is interested in the card, now might be the time to go after it. And then sort of a final word on the approval process. For some people, if your credit score is a little lower, you might get approved, but you might not be really happy with the credit limit you get. It might be something like $1,000 or less that you start out with in terms of buying power. Now, Apple on the Apple Card website has some sort of information that doesn't necessarily correlate with each other. In one instance, I've seen as little as 4 months that you could potentially get a credit limit increase if you do well with the card. In other cases, I've seen 6 months, but in either case, 6 months is on the outside. So within that first year, as long as you're doing the right things with this card and probably other cards that you might be holding, you could probably expect a credit limit increase. So overall, Apple Card's still a pretty decent credit card in today's marketplace, especially if you only want to hold one card and if Apple Pay is something that you use regularly already and it fits your lifestyle, then you are going to be happy with what you have here. Again, if you have a lower credit score, you might have the advantage of being able to get this card more easily than some of the other cards on the market that might offer something similar or maybe even a little better. So that's obviously going to make it more attractive. We will see what happens next with the Apple Card in 2025, whether there are going to be major changes or whether it's going to sort of stick to the pattern here, whether some other card issuer will sort of agree to the same things that Goldman Sachs did. Anyway, would love to hear your thoughts about it in the comments section below. Otherwise, I thank you for watching, and as always, please go to proudmoney.com where we do credit card reviews, we talk personal finance, we talk deals, and all sorts of other fun stuff too. If you're not going to go to the website or leave a comment, you might want to watch this video next.